Hi there, it's Wednesday, June 17th. I've got a great conversation with Middle East expert Aaron David Miller joining me, and a bonus conversation today, me on the Brian Shapiro YouTube show, which is very popular. I had a great time talking to Brian yesterday, and unfortunately I had a catastrophic failure. Haven't had one of those in maybe a few months where I lost hours of work, both clips and headlines this morning. So sorry about that. I've only got the interviews. I'm already late, so I'm going to post it up. That may sound like a line of bullshit, but it's not. It happens. Had to do with my moving into the new studio, computer issues, and I am very sorry about it. I'll be back with the regular format tomorrow. I can't do any of it today or any day without your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. It's a free show, but it sure is a lot of work. So please sign up right now or edit your pledge upward. You can always pay more than what you already are. Grateful to those of you who do. All right. Well, deal or no deal? I think it's probably the latter there. No deal. A lot of the clips and headlines I had were both Republicans and MAGA commentators shitting all over this, quote, Iran peace deal, and basically saying that we lost, from Megyn Kelly to Ben Domenech on Fox News and far more, Republican senators and more. Nobody's seen the outlines of this deal because there really aren't any. They're going to sign a piece of paper tomorrow, or rather on Friday in Geneva, and it's going to be a worse deal, and it won't be a deal because you're going to have to negotiate over 60 days. It's going to break, fall out. There's going to be more bombing. You just see Israel's going to interfere, and I think that that's probably what's most likely to happen. So we shouldn't spend too much time talking about it, though I do have great analysis, perspective, and context from Aaron David Miller, which I'm going to bring to you right now. Aaron, of course, Middle East analyst, author, negotiator, and now a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, focusing on U.S. foreign policy. And he has been an advisor to both Republican and Democratic secretaries of states, and always loved talking to this State Department veteran and PhD, as well as friend. He's a friend of mine, and very, very thoughtful things he says right here at the top. And after this, you want to skip ahead to my conversation with Brian Shapiro. It starts at about 34 minutes into today's show, but let's do it right now with the great Aaron David Miller. All right, everything is happening very fast, so I reach out to one of the best Middle East experts in the world. It's Aaron David Miller. And I am so happy to see you, my friend. Such a good guy. Every time before we hit record, you're always very sincere and kind and thoughtful. And I always appreciate you joining me and talking to me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Some people make an impression, Pete. The old notion you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. The fact is, some people make really consequential first impressions, and not false flattery. You're part of that group. So
very kind. I love.
We could not see each other for a year, and it's like talking to my best friend.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, you said before I hit record, you're like, I'm not an Iran expert, but you are a Middle East expert. You know the players, you know the history of the region. And even if you weren't an Iran expert, I feel like everybody is or isn't, because nobody knows what is happening, and every day it changes. So your expertise almost isn't as pertinent, because every day we hear these competing narratives from both sides. So how do we know what's going on? That's where I want to start.
Oh, we don't. You don't have the whole story, but I think the headlines more or less probably will reflect pretty accurately the trend lines. 4 months in, with a cost over $100 billion, not to mention the inflationary cycles, gas prices, and this sort of disruption of the international and global oil markets. We have, in my judgment, a war of choice that has, not surprisingly, devolved into a very terribly flawed, quote, peace, unquote, of necessity. And if you stack up what the administration wanted to achieve against what it did, you can only come to the conclusion 4 months in, no one can predict for the future. If 3 years from now, the Iranian regime crumbles, I guarantee you those who were the architects of this war will claim maternity or paternity for that idea. But we live in the here and now, and, sometimes I can't figure out what I'm doing next Tuesday. But you have a conflict where the administration has fundamentally overestimated its own capacities and underestimated the capacity of its adversary. That is, in my shorthand way of saying that in a war of choice, you really, really, really need to define your objectives and have a very clear-eyed view of whether or not you have the means at your disposal to achieve them and what the other side might do in order to frustrate and prevent you from achieving them. And what you have is an extraordinary example. Ukraine actually may fall into this box as well, of a great, quote unquote, great power, Russia, fifth year of the war, failing to aggrandize or impose its will or break the military and political coherence of a country that's 3 times less in population and doesn't nearly have the industrial base. Here you have the world's most formidable military power, joined with the region's most formidable military power, Israel, failing to bring the Iranian regime to its knees, to fundamentally affect its ability to project its power, to fracture the regime, to change the regime. And as I look out across the wreckage, what I see is, a normal person, let's say you and I, for example, might conclude, what exactly do we have to show for 4 months? The Iranians have weaponized geography, and the Middle East geography is destiny. I don't want to be unkind here, but did anybody seriously bother to show the president a map? And it would be almost inexorable that in the face of a military deployment of force, the Iranians, in order to survive, would do something that many people thought they wouldn't, because it would be economic suicide, which was to close the straits. And even if they did, we could open them at relatively little cost. Well, both judgments proved to be wrong. So here we are on the cusp of a signing ceremony on Friday in Geneva for a 1 or 1.5 page document, which is more than not, Pete, a letter of intent.
Right.
It's aspirational.
Right.
There are very few commitments aside from easing the naval blockade and, quote unquote, opening the straits. And I guarantee you they're going to be arguing, both sides, over precisely how to do that.
I feel like I'm seeing headlines. Have I read headlines? And what do you think of this idea that the United States lost the war in Iran? The U.S. and Israel lost the war in Iran. We have to talk about Israel and Lebanon separately, I suppose. But I just look, the only thing that really, the most important factor about this on the timeline of Iran-U.S. relationship, you can go all the way back to the 50s if you want. But I just want to go back to the JCPOA, the Obama deal, the Iran deal. Trump gets elected. Well, I should say he campaigned on, I'll rip up that Iran deal. Always positioning, by the way, Democrats, specifically Obama, as some kind of secret Muslim terrorist aligned with Iran, even though they negotiated so hard against Iran. There was no love there at all. And he campaigns on ripping it up. He rips it up. In his second term, he goes to war, as told by the Israelis, apparently. Maybe that's too flip. And now we have a, quote, new deal that isn't even remotely close to or as good, arguably, as the Obama deal. We don't really know. But what we do know is what we spent to get it and what we lost to get it, including the lives of several Americans. And obviously the cost of gas and everything else. And so what are we looking at, really? He ripped up that deal that was so hard fought to get a less good deal, a worse deal with a tremendous immeasurable cost. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think so. And to add further insult to this, since 2018, since the administration first Trump 1.0 walked out of that Iran nuclear agreement, the Iranians have managed to enrich 11 tons of uranium at varying levels, in addition to the 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium, which is at 60% You need to get to 90 for bomb grade. They could be there in a matter of weeks. So they are so far more advanced now than they were that any deal is going to have to involve a level of intrusive monitoring and verification and constraint that frankly goes beyond what Obama got out of an 18-month negotiated effort to produce an 18-page text and 141 pages of technical annexes, which essentially had two basic elements. Put time on the clock, that is to say, keep Iran the best you can do. Once scientific knowledge enters the head of a scientific community, is to put time on the clock with intrusive monitoring. And frankly, whatever comes out of this, and we can talk in a minute on what could redeem this, what might redeem some of this. That's the same logic that Trump is now pursuing. Time on the clock. He says Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. You know, I measured my life, and he will as well, in 4 to 8 year increments.
Right.
I mean, I never use never for good or ill when it comes to the Middle East, because we can't see what's in front of us. So I think, and the Iranians are adept and astute at, bizarre bargaining. And when you have finally Hegseth Rubio and Ratcliffe, director of CIA, now questioning whether or not the Iranians are serious about nuclear capitulation, you have to conclude that at the very least, this is a solution to a problem that we never had, which is vintage Donald Trump. And I guess the way this could end is the way Gaza ended, what I call a phase one and done, right? The hostages are out. The war, as we watch the Israelis wage it, is over against Hamas, although Gaza is sporadically violent, to say the least. But you could end up with a situation, Pete, where the straits are opening, the naval blockade is eased, the administration is already trying to figure out a way to get frozen assets to the Iranians without leaving their fingerprints on it. And then interminable negotiations that drag on and on and on. And the odds that Trump will go back to war, let me see, it's end of June. They want a 60-day clock. That's July, August. Let's say they extend the negotiation another month. That's September. He's not going to war on the cusp of the midterm. So we are losing whatever leverage we had. Two things could save him from profound humiliation and embarrassment. One is an agreement to get the highly enriched uranium, either diluting it, destroying it, or shipping it out of the country. That's one. And number two, better than the JCPOA in this one instance, instead of allowing the Iranians to enrich under IAEA supervision, a limited amount, 3.67%, which is well below bomb grade. Mm-hmm. You impose a moratorium, not a permanent end, but a 10 to 15 year moratorium in which the Iranians do not enrich any uranium. Now, that's going to require, if the Iranians agreed to that, Trump says 20 years, the Iranians say 10 years. Cheating here and the opacity of what the Iranians could do to keep their centrifuges spinning in locations that we aren't aware of, even that the IAEA isn't aware of, a pretty high possibility. And there's zero trust and confidence.
Right. That's, the most important issue, right? You know more than anybody about trust and confidence and why they are so important in any kind of deal making or international negotiation, diplomacy at all. You're supposed to trust but verify, but there has to be some kind of credibility with the partner or partners, especially in this case where there's so many different interests. And by the way, we heard that Trump is thanking China and Russia, but not necessarily Israel, which is being reported. And people
That's a whole nother.
skeptical as to.
Therein, Pete, hangs a different tale.
Yeah, go ahead. Can you do it?
Quite intriguing. I mean, just a few data points. No American president. I worked for Jimmy Carter to Bush 43, R's and D's, voted for R's and D's, worked for R's and D's. And I throw in Obama and Biden. No American president has ever publicly talked about an Israeli prime minister the way Donald Trump has talked about Benjamin Netanyahu. And no American president has ever purposefully leaked conversations with a prime minister in which he not only had convos that were laced with profanity, questioned the Israeli prime minister's motives, his judgment. This is virtually unprecedented. And if you marry that to the fact that unlike all of his predecessors, without exception, maybe Eisenhower, he has more running room to pressure Israel without cost or consequence than any of his predecessors.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's no higher court of appeals.
Right.
There's no Republican-controlled Congress that isn't indebted to the president. There's no invitation by the Speaker of the House, as there was in 2015, to have Netanyahu come and address a joint meeting to rail against the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement. And if you look at the polling, the Pew polling and attitudes in Congress, I followed the U.S.-Israeli relationship. I believe in a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship, not an exclusive one. But I've never seen the three components of what constitutes this relationship under greater stress. A lack of coincidence of interests, high coincidence of interests, particularly on matters relating to the Palestinians and Lebanon, number one. Shared values. The current prime minister is trying to rearrange Israel's political furniture to undermine the independence of the Supreme Court. We're doing, as you know, sadly, tragically, our best, he is, to undermine effective constitutional governance in America. But shared values is now under stress. And then the strong, sustainable basis of bipartisan support. Netanyahu and Trump have done more, in my judgment, to undermine that sense of bipartisanship than any previous American president. And Israeli prime minister. So Trump has, because of elections in October, and Netanyahu needs Trump literally to set up a let's reelect Netanyahu campaign headquarters in Washington. Trump can't reelect him. But if Trump doesn't campaign aggressively for him, it's going to amplify his vulnerability. So huge leverage. And I think if what's standing my sense is you never want to get in between Donald Trump and something for whatever reason he cares about. And he wants out of this war.
Yeah. If
Netanyahu is somehow a huge problem, he'll hammer him. There's no doubt about it. Lebanon's going to be tricky, though, because by the same token, Iran needs to constrain Hezbollah. I would argue if Iran is serious about this and Trump is serious, that Iran would basically say, ask Hezbollah to stand down for the next several months. Trump would do the same for Netanyahu. No military activity, no strikes by Hezbollah in northern Israel, Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, no Israeli strikes in Beirut, and no Israeli military operations in southern Lebanon. If you could get that for 60, 90 days, you could actually test the proposition that the gaps on some of these issues between the U.S. and Iran could maybe be bridged.
Do you ever think about how much has transpired in the Middle East in the last 5 to 6 years versus your entire career working?
I do. I also, as I get older, now realize what a unique period the 1990s were. Yes. It's the only decade in the last half of the last century where there was no major Arab-Israeli war, 48, 56, 67, 73, 82. The 90s, beginning with Bush 41 and James Baker, and ending with Clinton, ended up being an extraordinarily productive and held enormous potential. I don't think I realized at the time how fleeting an opportunity those 10 years were, because they're not coming back. And we now face a situation where it's hard to identify bright spots.
Yeah, well, literally thinking about Gaza, thinking about Lebanon, obviously Iran, it all has happened so fast, and who knows where things are going to land. I mean, even now we're talking on Tuesday. This deal is supposed to be apparently signed in Geneva on Friday. And the deal is basically to start talking for 60 days, and then we could start bombing again. And it's very confusing and hard to understand, although apparently they planned it. Well, there's some suspicion that they planned it for Friday because what's happening on Friday? The Obama library is opening. There's going to be a tremendous amount of coverage on that. Although I do find that kind of skepticism almost it's par for the course, but also like who does this? Who makes a decision? Who looks ahead of the schedule and says, you know what, Obama's going to get a lot of attention on Friday.
Right.
And, we better, steal that attention by having a fight on the White House lawn. It's also Juneteenth on Friday. And so he wants all the attention and doesn't want any of it to go to folks.
We're getting the agreement on his birthday.
Right. For sure. Yeah. We're having a big UFC match on the White House lawn, which was such unbelievable disgrace. When you look at the U.S. relationship with Israel, speaking of things that have changed drastically in a few years, maybe we never thought we would see this kind of relationship change, but it's definitely affected everything. The Middle East, of course, most importantly, but domestic politics here at home. The Democratic Party's relationship with Israel, much less the Republican Party's relationship with Israel, they're both soured quite a bit. Different reasons, different ways, for sure. But what do you make of the domestic politics, seeing what you've seen in your career? How much has changed with these two party systems and with America's public perception of the country of Israel?
Well, I mean, I think just to shorthand it, and again, I don't want to underestimate the impact of October 7th on Israel's, the trauma will hang over Israel for many years to come. I think you have a situation where David, in the mind of America, has become Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't want to trivialize Israel's security challenges. And, when it comes to Iran and the bomb, we're Mars, they're Venus. I mean, they do have an existential problem. There's no doubt, and we shouldn't trivialize it. But I think I did this thought experiment. A year after October 7, had you had a different Israeli prime minister, a Ben Gurion, a Rabin, a Barak, a Peres, even a Sharon, would Israeli policy have been fundamentally different? Would another Israeli prime minister have begun to understand that military power in the prosecution of Israel's war against Hamas was not only flawed, but the risk transfer in terms of what kind of damage and civilian deaths and destruction the Israelis were prepared to transfer in their effort to the civilian population of Gaza to prosecute the war against Hamas? I think a different Israeli prime minister that wasn't on trial for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in a Jerusalem district court, 5 years in running now, who had to maintain power, and maintenance of power demanded the coherence of the most right-wing government in the history of the state of Israel, married to the fact that from Netanyahu's perspective, keeping the conflict going was much safer politically, capitalizing on the trauma of Israelis in the wake of October 7, the hostage taking, that a different Israeli prime minister might have altered that conception. Right now, unless you get a change in Israel and you get a new president here, I think the erosion of support is going to continue. And even if you do get a prime minister and a government that is more centrist, Israel is a right-wing country. certainly a center right-wing country. If you're 20, you'd have to be 40 basically, or 35 to even begin to remember what were some of the positives of peacemaking during the 90s. And I think that sense has been lost. Here, again, you have at least three different conceptions of Israel, as I can determine. You have the mainstream of the Republican Party, which is still Israel right or wrong. You have MAGA outliers and increasing numbers of Republicans, both inside government and out, who are asking very tough questions and struggling with all kinds of darker concerns, Candace Owens concerns, Tucker Carlson concerns, which skew to something that is much more than just anti-Israel. You have at least three different views in the Democratic Party. You have mainstream Democrats, most of whom were not elected to deal with Israel,
right,
who tend to be basically supporters of an Israeli narrative. And then we've got progressives that fall into several different categories. Some who are prepared, the three Chris's, Van Hollen, Coons, and Murphy, all of who have called in the last 2 years for imposing conditions and restrictions on U.S. military assistance, right? You have Rahm Emanuel, who's talking about not a penny of taxpayer dollar. And then you have the left of the party, even more progressive, that would like to sanction. So I think I say it again, the bipartisanship that has held the relationship together is fracturing. And when you're in a hole, obviously the first rule, as you know, is to stop digging. I think that a U.S.-Israeli relationship that is special but not exclusive, one in which Israel respects American interests, works cooperatively, doesn't intrude or intervene in American politics, and of course reciprocity on the American side, is still a net plus for the United States in the region. But again, I think in its current iteration, Israel is Goliath. I believe for 40 years that when the image of Israel changes in what I call the mind of America, then and only then will the policy change. And we haven't seen that quite yet. And I don't know at what point, Pete, that happens. When we stop sharing intelligence with the Israelis, when we stop doing R&D, when do we stop defending Israel at the UN and in other international fora? When do we start adopting consistently pro-Palestinian positions on statehood? When will there be open debate in the U.S. Congress in large numbers about Israeli policies, occupation policies on the West Bank, and what is a more effective relationship between the U.S. and Israel? That has not happened yet.
No.
But you begin to see it moving in that direction.
Yeah, a lot of good questions, as always, and great answers, as always, as well. What are you watching for in the near future? Anything in particular?
No, I mean, I've said this all along. We're stuck in a region. We have interests, partners, adversaries. We're stuck in a region we can't transform and we can't leave. So if there's no transformation, there's no extrication, what do? I mean, I think you have to have a pretty sober assessment of what American interests are, what I call the must-haves, as opposed to the it would be nice to haves.
Right.
But I conclude by quoting a line from that iconic Eagles song, Hotel California. Even Donald Trump, Mr. America First, who with the exception of the Gulf would have basically extricated himself from the Middle East. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. Someone asked me the other day, well, aren't we finished? Aren't we done? Isn't our credibility, reputation, policies completely undermined? And I said, we've deployed power, to say the least, unwisely. But then I asked the question, where are the Russians? Where are the Chinese?
Yeah.
Where are the Europeans? Pete, I don't think there's an international crisis which has encumbered the global economy and the global oil market.
Yeah.
That I can think of, in which three countries, Iran, the U.S., and Israel, dominated. So we're there, for better, for worse, for ill or good. It's just we got to be a lot smarter in the way we deploy our power.
I mean, the only thing I'm looking for is gas prices. I firmly believe COVID is the reason why Trump did not get reelected, because of COVID. And I think that gas prices cost of everything would be the reason he wouldn't win the midterms specifically coming up. And I hate to say I'm rooting for high prices because I know it affects all of us, especially certain people that don't have as much, a lot, but we'll see what happens there. And of course, the way out of this 50-year quagmire, put any timeline.
I think there's only 3 examples in the last 100 years where an incumbent administration actually picked up significant seats. No, the Republicans will lose seats in the House. I think, but even before the war, I would think.
Yeah, well,
that's a whole nother conversation, Pete, about effective constitutional governance in America and the damage and wreckage this man has done to our norms, our institutions, the cruelty, the unkindness, the hollowing out of institutions. I mean, it's a generational problem.
You wrote a book, how many years ago was it published? Your last book, I believe.
The End of Greatness, Why America Can't Have and Doesn't Want Another Great President.
That book was too prescient. You published it in 2014.
Yep.
You son of a bitch. It's your fault.
We want good presidents, Pete. Good in the sense that they're good at what they do. Good in the sense that they're moral, they operate within moral and an ethical frame. And good in the sense that they're good at controlling their own ambitions, greed, demons, and prejudices. You have a president. The founders talked about moral self-governance, the idea that a leader should be able to control these things in service of what they described as public virtue. They never thought, they feared, I'm not sure they ever thought that a human would arise whose conception of the American national interest is dominated by his own interests. The White House is an ATM machine. The amount of corruption and self-dealing in this administration, I don't know.
You never thought a man would bubble up would be maybe more accurate. Arise, just kind of bubble up like a screw worm. Aaron David Miller, always a pleasure, sir. I cannot thank you enough for your time today and to forever, always enlightening us, teaching us, and helping us ask all the best.
Pete, Dominic, thanks. Great questions, great conversation, and take good care until next time.
All right, Aaron David Miller, how about it? Love talking to him. Always learn so much from him. Yesterday, I also had the opportunity to be a guest on Pushing the Limits, hosted by Brian Shapiro out in Las Vegas, which broadcasts in a whole bunch of radio stations out there, but is huge on YouTube now. Almost 200,000 followers on YouTube. Pushing the Limits is the name of the show. Brian Shapiro is the host. The audio, there was something wrong with it. You might not be able to tolerate it. I just really liked few of my answers here to Brian, and so I wanted to share this with you. Again, it's Pushing the Limits on YouTube if you want to subscribe, and here we go.
Oh, wow. It's great to see you, my friend.
Brian, it is great to be back. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to see you too, pal. How's things?
Yeah, it's been a little while, man. How you been?
I've been really good. I'm transitioning.
You are?
Yeah.
Please explain.
Well, I'm moving.
Oh, okay, that transition. Okay, Republicans don't seem to have a problem with that sort of transitioning. I got to ask you this. Speaking of transitioning, I can't even believe I have to ask you this, but what do you make, number one, of this moron UFC fighter? And people are still talking about it today, rightfully so, calling Michelle Obama a man, and we're talking about it because nobody in the Trump administration will denounce it. I mean, what do you make of that?
I think it was Charlemagne the God, that a very popular radio host, black radio host, very influential in black community in certain sectors. He talked about how every time anyone brings up Obama's name, it reminds people about how classy they were, about how good they were. Michelle Obama in particular, had that phrase, when they go low, when they go low, we go high, kill them with kindness kind of idea. And I think that's a good point. Like, they're so jealous, envious of both the success of Obama, both as a president and as a family, Michelle and Barack Obama. I mean, and I think that when they make those types of remarks and insults, they're not jokes, right? It's not funny. Someone said, oh, they're just trolling. I mean, if that's the case, then we could say whatever we want about anyone all the time. Imagine if I just said that to you right now, Brian, I'm just trolling you. I mean, there's kidding around and busting chops, and there's making the most disrespectful, insulting remarks that have no humor at all. And there's a huge difference. So I think it's preposterous for them to say those types of comments, but it reminds us of just how great the Obamas were and how good we once had it.
That's a really good point. Now, I'm wondering your opinion on this, Pete, regardless of that statement, which I think we both agree was disgusting. You've been in the entertainment business your whole life. You've made a nice career for yourself. What do you make of the entertainment value, for lack of a better term, of holding UFC fights in the octagon and on the White House lawn? Do you think it's inappropriate? Are you okay with it? What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny you mentioned my career in the entertainment business. Let me just take a sip out of my Colbert Report coffee mug that I got for being
I like it.
a warm-up comedian for 6 years.
Yep. I know you're friends with him. I wish he was still on the air, quite frankly.
Yeah, we could certainly talk about that and what we've lost to a certain extent. But, I'm not one of these guys that's like, oh, respect the office, respect the house, and that I care so much about nostalgia in history. I mean, it's history and it should be written in books and so on. But at the same time, I think there is a question about what government should be involved in our lives and how government should be in our lives. And that has always been a really important debate in America amongst political people who care about politics, want to talk about the role of government in our lives. And I think most importantly, how government spends our money. And really how they represent us. The people that we send to Washington or that we send to town hall or city hall or whatever, they're supposed to represent us, our interests, but also with their moral character. So obviously these guys are grifters, have no moral character. Many of them are domestic abusers. Many of them are J6ers. They're the worst of the worst. So we don't expect much from them. But still, that is our house. That is our lawn. That was our rose garden. And if you want to change it and you're a representative of government, you should go through a process. And maybe it's going to take a little while. And if the majority of the people say, you know what, that looks like a good idea, then great. But if the majority of people say, we don't think you should pave over the rose garden to build a statue of golden Trump, I don't think you should do that. How about that? How about democracy? How about it's ours and you don't get to redesign it? And when any other president tried to do that, they had to go through a whole process, which is the legal way it should work. And this guy thinks he's immune to all of that. But it was such a disgrace. All these men in their tights. I mean, my friend Wajad Ali said on Piers Morgan's show, which I know you have been on many times, he said it was so gay. Yeah, it was very gay.
I did make that joke because it's like from a base of supporters, right? I'm not saying every Republican's homophobic, but as you know, Pete, a lot of these people on the far right are very homophobic and they're anti-gay marriage and they're anti-trans and they're anti-drag queen, right? And here, isn't it ironic that you have a bunch of half-naked men in tights twirling around in an octagon while it seems like Donald Trump lately seems to always be commenting on the wonderful muscles of all these men that he runs into. I do find that a little bit strange and hypocritical, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, to be homophobic, to be anti-gay is to be someone who's questioning their own sexuality. It's your insecurity about your own sexuality. I mean, it's so often these events which are supposed to come off as masculine and MAGA Republicans, it's usually a bunch of white guys who present straight unless you've met a gay person, and then they don't present so straight. And they have these huge gatherings, and they show these pictures in the poster, and you're like, man, that looks like Gay Pride Fest, not MAGA Fest or, Turning Point or whatever it is. It's all so gay to me. I mean, I make jokes about myself being gay and being attracted to men all the time because, A, I'm totally comfortable in my sexuality, right, and B, I don't care what you think. If you think I'm gay, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care what you think about my sexual orientation. I don't care what you think about where I am on the masculinity spectrum. as a result, I come off as super masculine. I've got many drills. I have circular saws, an electric one. I can build shit. I work out at the gym. I eat meat. I have sex with women only. But if you think I'm gay, fine. Fine. To all my LGBT brothers and sisters, I love you. Happy Pride Month. I am your ally. I am by your side and maybe behind you. Maybe once when I had a few Rolling Rocks.
That's hilarious, but it's also true. Like, why would we care whether Trump supporters out there think we're gay or not, or they use homophobic slurs?
They do it all the time. It's the main insult. When women are on TV, you know this as well as I do.
Yep.
They get attacked for their looks, or they get like rape threats, or something like that. When men are on TV, men like us are on TV, who are present as straight and identify as heterosexual, whatever. They think it's insulting. The first thing they do to men on television, radio, whatever, is call you gay or feminine or whatever. It doesn't affect me because I'm more confident than you. I'm the alpha, bro. That's why your gay jokes don't affect me. You're the beta cuck. That's why you're making them.
That's so true. I could not agree with you more on that one, because we both get it all the time on social media, and that's you're right. I really don't care. I just laugh at it. I think it's very strange. Like, they use it as like an insult too, which is also bizarre.
It's not an insult. Gay men are organized. They're successful. They're disproportionately affluent.
Yep. And they call Tellerico low T, and they say he's a closeted homosexual. And the reason why, Pete, I will call Benny Johnson a self-hating homosexual because, number one, he hates on gay people, and I think he's closeted himself.
Yeah.
I've said that many a times. I've told him that on the Piers Morgan show. I feel the same way about Michael Knowles. And I'm not mocking people for being gay, and I know you would never do that, and I don't do that. What I am is I'm mocking them and calling them out for hating gay people when I believe they're closeted homosexuals themselves.
On these issues, I will always follow the leaders who are on the front line. So if it's, Black Lives Matter, civil rights issues with black folks, I'm going to listen to the black scholars, academics, the civil rights, the peoples in the street, the leaders, the organizers. Yep. When it comes to LGBT issues, I'm going to listen to those folks as well. Back in the day, my old friend Michelangelo Signorelli started this campaign. I forget what it was called, but it was about outing Republican politicians, because generally you should never be outed. Your sexual orientation is yours, and if you make it public, that's up to you. And you shouldn't have to ever hide it, but it's up to you. But if you're gay and you are a policymaker and you are making policies against LGBT people, Michelangelo Signorelli and others in the gay community said that's an exception. We will out you. If you are closeted gay and you are Lady G and you are making these policies, or you're a commentator and you're advocating against gay rights, equal rights, marriage equality, pay equity, anti-discrimination, health issues. If you're advocating and making policies, we will out you. That we will make an exception for, because it will damage your ability to influence. It will also hopefully get you thrown out of Congress or whatever office that you're in. And so, these guys are hiding their sexuality, or I should say, I don't know who they're doing, but generally speaking, the loudest haters to me come off as the gayest. And I'm not like joking, and I'm just saying, the louder anti-gay you are, the more you love dick.
I actually completely agree with you on that, 150%. I want to talk to you, Pete, a little bit about the war in Iran right now, because I'm doing a debate on OAN yesterday with Ryan, who does a show out there, because I was in D.C. yesterday, and the argument is, well, we have a deal in place with Iran and the United States, even though Israel's not a part of this and they don't agree with it. But, hey, this is going to work. Even though the president of the United States is not releasing any of the information of what's in this deal, we have no idea what we've offered them or if they've offered us anything, no idea of sanctions. Well, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Big deal. It was open 4 months ago.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, it's cost us, as you know, $2 billion a day. Gas prices are basically twice as much as they were when Trump first took office, and we have no idea what's in this deal, and yet MAGA Republicans are saying, this is great. Donald Trump's the only president who could have done this. I mean, what do you say to that?
I mean, I think if you could convince people to listen for like a minute, we have a hard time listening to each other. But if you could give some context
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go back to 1953, the overthrow. You don't have to go back to 79, the revolution. You don't have to go back to the Iran-Iraq war. You don't have to go back to the Iraq war where we invaded Iraq, thus making Iran more powerful than ever before. But if you go back to the presidential campaign of 2016 when Donald Trump campaigned on tearing up the Iran deal, which took years to negotiate, Energy Secretary, Secretary of State Ernie Muñoz, and Secretary of State Kerry negotiated this along with so many others. Susan Rice, Ben Rhodes. I mean, this took forever.
Yep.
Trump campaigned on tearing it up. He got in office somehow, and that's exactly what he did. Years later, when he got reelected, he started a war with Iran because Israel told him to. And now he is supposed to have some deal that isn't nearly as good as the deal Iran offered him at the beginning of the war, much less as the deal that he ripped up. He sets fires and he builds something back, which is just a few boards prepared to fall apart, and he pays the people who built it in crypto. He is a grifter. He is a liar. And the United States of America lost the war they started against Iran by every single metric, by the lives lost, by the money wasted, and more importantly, by the power that we actually threw to them. And if you could measure embarrassment, humiliation, and failure, history will remember this as the war that Israel and the U.S. started with Iran, who never starts wars. They have their proxies, their terrible regime, of course, but that Iran won. Iran won billions of dollars. They're going to start charging tolls that they never charge. And they look stronger than other people. We empowered the leaders of Iran. We did no regime change. We don't have our control of their nuclear material. We lost everything. And America, led by a loser, will be seen as a loser during this conflict.
Pete, what do you think was done for this alleged deal? By the way, I'm not believing anything that either party is saying here, whether it be the Iran government or the Trump administration. I'm not believing anybody here.
Right.
What do you make of the fact that Israel's not a part of this at all? Obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu can't be happy. And now we're supposed to be learning more, and we're supposed to be waiting till Friday. But what do you think was allegedly in this deal to begin with?
I don't think the deals is simply we are going to make a deal to talk for 60 days, and then we're going to start bombing each other again. I mean, if we spend too much time talking about it, it will change in an hour anyway. I talked to Aaron David Miller, who is a longtime Middle East peace negotiator and expert at the Carnegie Endowment. Smart guy. I talked to him today. Great, the best analysis you could get. But you know what? It could all change tomorrow. We could talk about history and how far we've come, but really the recent history of this over 100-day war is just a constant back and forth of our General Fatton just losing, changing his mind, saying we're close. And so whatever happens on Friday, by the way, the quote deal signing is taking place in Switzerland on Friday. I wonder if it's because it's Juneteenth and he doesn't want attention paid to black history, and it's a huge accomplishment for the black president. He's opening his library very publicly on Friday, and he wants to steal the news cycle because the only thing Donald Trump cares about is himself, and the only way he tries to save himself and promote himself is by owning that news cycle every day. So this conflict will go on. We will not see any real resolution. And like I said, we will have lost. We lost. He wants to get out. And the reason why, and Iran knows this and the world knows this, everybody knows this, is our midterm elections and gas prices. That's why. He wants out. He wants it to end. He needs the gas prices to go down. So he's not going to get a better deal than Obama. Everybody's going to know it. He's going to be humiliated. He'll try to rewrite history and tell us that the thing we saw didn't happen. But we saw it. We see the gas prices. They're likely not to come down that much. If they do, that will be his win. But he will have, not won anything, but potentially he's still going to lose everything in the midterm elections just for starting the war.
And let's be clear, Pete, if this was a good deal for America, the first people that would release this deal would have been Donald Trump and his administration. There's a reason why they're not releasing it. Yep. It's probably, I'm assuming this, and I think it's a fair assumption that this is probably a much better deal for Iran than it is for the United States of America. You being a New York guy, Pete, I reminisce here. I have to ask you a little bit about the Knicks. Let me just add congratulations first to your New York Knicks. And number two, What do you find it interesting that the only game that the San Antonio Spurs were able to win were a game that Donald Trump was actually in the building at Madison Square Garden?
That's so sweet. Sometimes the narrative does land in a kind of romantic way. I think that the mayor of New York is a exceptionally charismatic, intelligent, likable, affable guy. And I think that he has brought New York together in a way we have never seen. I think a lot about the collective suffering of New York City. I was there on 9/11. I lost friends on 9/11. I smelled those buildings burning and the bodies burning for months after. And I have like a little bit of PTSD, and it's not too severe, but it comes and goes when I go to New York and I smell certain things. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the collective suffering of that day. I can't go downtown because of the suffering. And so we really haven't had this kind of collective joy, though the Giants and Mets and Yankees have certainly won since 2001. This was different. I don't know necessarily why. Maybe it's because of the way that life is right now, or maybe it's because of New York City and the makeup, or maybe it's because basketball is New York's game, or maybe it's because the New Yorks haven't won in so many years. But I think it's something more. I think that people want desperately to feel joy and to see a multi-ethnic group, a city, and the biggest in the world, the best in the world, and people from all backgrounds and walks of life in the streets celebrating. It was magical, and it was the opposite of collective suffering. It was collective joy.
Agree, 100%. So I've heard some rumors here. We know that James Dolan is I just think is a complete jerk. He's friends with Donald Trump, not necessarily just for that reason, but I've heard rumors that the New York Knicks will be going to visit the Pope instead of the president. I don't know if that's true or not. What do you think is going to happen here? And ultimately, do you think the Knicks will be visiting the White House?
No, I don't think the New York Knicks will go to the White House. I haven't thought about that. It's a good question, but I think these guys, I don't want to say anything generally insulting about athletes or basketball players or young black men that didn't go to college but were exceptionally talented as athletes. I don't want to make any generalizations about any of those groups of people. But these guys are exceptionally intelligent and emotionally intelligent. Carl Towns, Cat, he just lost his mom, and the way he talks about her and what she meant to him is so like, it's not like most of us talk about loss. He talks about love and kindness. Jalen Brunson is absolutely brilliant in the way that he talks about his intellectual capital and says phrases like that. And so are the rest of these guys. And I just can't see them dignifying Donald Trump. I can't see them sharing air with him because I think everybody knows and New York knows nobody likes that guy. And I just can't see that. I just can't see it happening. So it's a smart move to go to the
in the history of Donald Trump's presidency, not one team, Pete, not one NBA team has accepted the offer to visit the White House. All the way back to 2017. I know that the Nuggets had a scheduling conflict. That's what they claim.
You could argue if character didn't matter, then marketing does. It doesn't help them in any way. I mean, they don't. Michael Jordan was famous for saying, I sell my sneakers to Republicans and Democrats, so he stayed out of politics. That was a different time. He's not that way anymore, I don't think. But I think these guys, if character didn't matter, and I think that's the main reason why they wouldn't go, marketing does and money does and endorsement deals does. They lose nothing by not going, and they would definitely lose a lot if they did go. I mean, did you see that comedian Nate Bargatze was at the UFC fight? And Nate, I know Nate, he's a good guy, and he's considered, quote, apolitical. And then he's, trying to manage us now saying, UFC is my favorite sport. Well, if UFC is your favorite sport, that says a little bit more about you, first of all. But more importantly, you can't say you're apolitical and show up at the most political events. You are endorsing them. I have always believed the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So if you show up, you're supporting. I mean, at least in this day and age, it's not always true, and I'm not a litmus test guy, but I just think that there's a huge difference in supporting UFC versus these New York Knicks or any basketball players or black athletes in general or female athletes or LGBT athletes like Megan Rapinoe of the U.S. women's soccer team. Like those women made a real strong stand back when they won as well.
No, you're right, Pete. And I don't believe the Knicks are going to be visiting the White House. Even though I grew up a Boston Celtics fan, I was happy to see the Knicks win. And you mentioned Karl Anthony Towns, who lost his mom recently, and the way he talks about his mom, so articulate and it's heartfelt, and you makes you want to. And listen, I'd say the same thing about the Spurs. I think Wembanyama and so many of these Spurs players are good people. The way they respect Popovich and sit with him and talk with him, and just the way these young men speak, I was really proud of the NBA and proud of these Knicks and Spurs players, because these are just good people that are on the floor, right? These are smart, good people that are caring people. And it was fun to watch,
do you think that the referees are influenced in any way by corruption and money? There have been NBA referees in the past.
So Dennehy is the former official who went to jail for fixing games, even though he says he wasn't fixing games. We know he was, but he did go to jail. I've interviewed him plenty of times. And he's been very forthcoming with me. And he said, yeah, he's been very forthcoming with me. Not necessarily fixed. They understand that the NBA makes more money if the series is extended, but they have certain issues with certain players and coaches, and they have these conferences before games. And they talk to each other. Okay, we're going to tee this guy up. We're going to tee that guy up. We're going to call the game this way or that way. So in that aspect, you could say it is. I think as gambling is more and more.
That's what I'm wondering too. Yeah, I mean, it was like I read a figure, all about that world, but I read a figure like the last finals was, I don't know the exact numbers, but like $1 billion was gambled, and this one was like 100% more, like $4 billion or maybe more. And that's obviously because of all the online betting markets and so on and the popularity of it all. But go ahead with your point.
Pete, here's what I would say. When all eyes are on the NBA finals, I believe the answer is no. The bigger the game, the more people are watching. But as you know, you can make all sorts of different bets on a regular season NBA game, heck, a preseason NBA game. So I believe if there are any games that are being fixed, it's going to be games where you have the least amount of people watching, and that would not be the NBA Finals. Now, we also know that there have been NBA players that have gotten in trouble and are possibly jail time for fixing their own games. There was one specific individual that left the game 2 minutes in and faked an injury because there were props put on him, over-unders. So, yes, we know this does happen. I do think it happens more than we would think. But, again, my answer is it's games that you won't watch. It's games that not a lot of people are watching. It could be a preseason game or a meaningless regular season game. But I don't think any fixing is going on when all eyes are on these games. It could be the Super Bowl. It could be the NBA Finals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it really. I'm interested to learn more about it. I hate the idea to think that that's the case. Sports have become so capitalized and so much about money, and it's like you want to watch the more and more amateur games because if I'm out here watching Little League knowing the game's not fixed, and then I realize I look like this and I'm alone at a Little League game.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to one of my friends, Andrew, earlier today, and we were talking about this college football player who made $8,000 bets while he was playing, either on his team or other sorts of bets. And now he instead of returning to play another year in college, he's just going to be a professional, so he doesn't have to deal with anything. And I think it's even more problematic at the amateur level. Well, even though college sports isn't really amateur anymore with this NIL, all this money that's being paid out. But this is a huge problem. It's going to continue to be a huge problem. Some of this stuff is very undetectable, and we won't be able to find it. But if some of these athletes are dumb enough to bet in their name or somebody in their family, then they're going to get caught, and I think it's going to continue to happen. But gambling is going to be here. I saw this stat, like 8 out of 10 people that are watching an NFL game have some sort of action on the game in one way or another. So it's a lot of money, and that's why a lot of people said you'll never get an NFL team in Vegas. Well, they were certainly wrong about that. We got the A's coming to town. As you know, the Vegas Golden Knights just lost in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, sorry.
And the NBA is going to be here. I thought it would be the first team we would get here, but the NBA is coming as well. So, it's money talks, Pete, right? Money talks.
Yeah. And, the only good thing that's happened to sports in the last 20 years is DVRs that allow us to fast forward through the commercials.
That's true. That is true. That is also true. Pete, before I let you go, first of all, I just want to say thank you. For people that don't know, I become friends with Wajahat Ali and JoJo from Jersey, who I just think are two just wonderful people, extremely intelligent. Yeah. And because of Pete, I met these two individuals. So I have Pete to thank so much. By the way, Pete's worked with like everybody in the industry, like literally everybody, some of the greatest. So Pete, I have you to thank for that as well. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to give out your information and your podcast, which is awesome. I think the interviews that you do on a regular basis are second to none. They're just phenomenal. So for some of my listeners, give out that information.
Yeah, please check it out. I do it every day. I basically talk to the smartest people I can find every day about the most important, complex issues. I book the best guests every day, and I do a pretty robust news segment, headlines, and I get like the best clips from the last 24 hours. I produce the whole thing. You can find it on YouTube, on Substack at Stand Up with Pete, and every day as a podcast, most popularly because I hosted a live radio show for 15 years. So we get this great community of people, most importantly, that we built. I love connecting you with people. I love connecting people with each other. And so come join our community. We hang out every Thursday night. You got to come by one of our Thursday night hangouts. They're so fun. We sit there and we drink. We hang out for 2 hours. Not everybody drinks, but obviously we have great conversations, connecting people with each other in this crazy world that we're in, reminding each other that this is happening, and this is how we're going to deal with it, and this is how we're going to find joy and make friends. So join our community that we accidentally built at standupwithpete.com.
There you go. StandUpWithPete.com. Happy to come on anytime, Pete. I think you're one of the best in the business, and lucky to be able to call you a friend, brother. Please keep up the great work. I appreciate your time, and I know we'll touch base soon, my friend, and I appreciate it.
Anytime, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. It's always fun.
Thanks, Pete. You're the best. Pete Dominick, everybody. By the way, Pete came in studio not that long ago, and like I said, I mean it when I say I'm lucky to meet people like Pete in this industry. First of all, he's a great guy. He's a good dude. He's a good father. He's a good man. Extremely talented, like really funny. Just a really talented guy. And I love it when he makes appearances on the national networks too, because I think I'll always remember when he just demolished Scott Jennings. Anybody who can demolish Scott Jennings live on CNN is one of my heroes. Pete is one of my heroes. So we appreciate him taking the time to join us. Listen, guys.
All right. I'm back live or on tape, but either way, wasn't that fun? You listened all the way through that? The audio wasn't. Who listened to that with the bad audio? Who are you? Email me. I have a special gift for you. I don't have anything for you, but I'll email you back. I might not email you back, but I'll try to. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com. You bumblebees, you're the greatest. Thank you very much for being here, for being you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Be the change you want to see in the world, and I hope you're safe and protected from harm. Hope you're happy in the midst of how things are. I hope you can be healthy and strong and whole, and I hope that today you'll live with ease of well-being. That's my hope for you, my hope for me, my hope for your dog and your cat and your bird. Love you. Bye-bye. John Carroll, take us away.
When the tyrants taunt you and the sirens tease, you better stand up. Stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge, let the weak flee. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all they had to stand. law and all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand up.